Okay, good afternoon and welcome to another edition of the L4G Education channel. This is the Education Show. My name is Chris Ogle. I'm fiddling with the buttons today and making sure that this show goes without hiccup. I'm joined today, very excited about today's show because I'm always excited to talk to David. So come and say hello, David.
Hello, pleased to be back.
All right?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm brilliant, thanks. And we have a really special guest on today, Jon Thorne from St Albans area, who's doing some amazing stuff out there, which we're going to learn about in a minute. But come and say hello, Jon.
Hiya, thank you. I wouldn't say I'm amazing, but well, yeah, I'm out there doing stuff, yeah.
Fabulous, fabulous. Well, I'm going to sort of pass over with the old slippery shoulders here. I'm going to pass over almost immediately to David, who's going to really have a conversation really about what Jon's doing and how he's doing it. And I think, David, we're really hoping that this discussion today is going to lead to people having other ideas, maybe coming up with other initiatives, or maybe even thinking about how they might replicate what Jon's doing elsewhere. So I'm gonna pass the rein over to you now, and you can take it from here.
Thank you, Chris. Hello, Jon.
Hiya.
Yeah, we've talked in previous shows about this new approach to education or paradigm to education, and how the need for youngsters today being treated more as creators and innovators, and you are somebody who stood out as someone who's actually taking a lead on this. You've created My Innovation Space, which we'll talk about in a moment, but just before we launch into any of the specifics, perhaps you wouldn't mind just sharing with us a brief introduction to yourself and your background, how you came to be working with young people.
Hiya, yeah, hello everybody. Yeah, I used to, 20 odd years ago, work for fairly large corporates where I helped increase collaboration online mainly to get ideas to flow across boundaries and across departmental walls and things. And that was my job, would be to go into a large corporate and find ways of getting ideas to share more collaboration, more adding to each other's ideas, and not building walls between each other. And then I became a dad, 2 kids. My first kid did not fit in at school. That's to say the least. Didn't fit in at all. And eventually what happened was I had to give up work, shut down my own company, and started homeschooling him, or home educating him. I'm praising this quite a lot, but so I then spent the next 6 years home educating both my kids. I do it with my wife. But the first 3 or 4 years, it was mainly me while my wife worked. So when you sort of sit there and you've got these 2 kids at home, what am I going to teach them in? Knowing that they don't fit the national curriculum, they don't fit this linear process of learning that school seems to be based on. So I will drop back onto what I know, which is I'll teach them how to collaborate, invent, create, discover, whatever that they feel like doing. So I sort of, took all boundaries off. Particularly, I stopped fixing them, and I said, trust your instincts. You can create, discover, and invent, which is my 3 pet words, anything you want. And that was how we spent our educational day. And then gradually, what happens is it gets a bit boring sometimes when you're on your own, especially when they move into the teenage years. They're now 18 and 15.
Okay.
So as they move up to teenager, they don't want to do it with me. They want to do it with other teenagers. So we started. I met a guy called Ian Petrie, who's an ex-teacher, and we started working together as to how we could hold a space so that the teenagers in that space had maximum room, to create, discover, and invent together in a way in which they're kind to each other. And me and Ian spent the next 4 or 5 years working out how to do that. Because one of the
How do you do that?
Yeah.
How do you go about holding this space?
The the key, it took us a long time to do this because one of the biggest, so I used to do this in the corporate world, so I started off by using what I worked in the corporate world.
Okay.
But the one thing that was different was a duty of care, which of course when you're at work, it's adult to adult, there's less duty of care. When I'm so what happens is because I'm the old man that's in the room, it took a long time to get around the head that because I'm the old man and because they're the teenagers and they're used to teachers teaching them, they give me power, and I had to learn to find a way where that didn't happen.
Yes.
And it took me quite a long time to do that. and what we found is that the essence of it is to keep out learnt behaviours about fixing things. So
Right.
So the idea is that the kids will come together. It's very different environments as well. So we do tall ship sailing, do cooking. Find creative things to do. So first of all, you have to have the activity that is creative.
Sure.
That's no right and wrong. So you're removing the idea that this is the right answer. You haven't got the right answer. Therefore, I need to fix you so that you can have the right answer. So we're removing all of those learned behaviours called fixing others.
So you're shifting away from the adult as a teacher figure or as a figure of authority, and it's more about asking the kids, what are you interested in, and supporting them in that. One of the things I wanted to ask you is, how do you go about identifying the kind of activities or creative pursuits that they're taking part in? How do you identify those?
Yeah, it's not quite. We're not quite. What the adult does, what I do is we're called a host, and I hold the space. So that means in this space, everyone in that space, the space is for them and for them completely.
Okay.
Yeah. So that they won't be judged by anybody. That you remove all of this pressure of fitting in, so it becomes them and only
sure.
them. There's no pressure. So what you have to remove all of that. Once that's removed, so they're now not worrying about fixing anything or being anything, just being themselves, the creativity comes out. So in other words, if I wanted you to stop being creative, I would say the right answer is 2 + 2 is 4. What's the answer? And then you might give me 5, and I go, that's wrong. I need to fix you. That's a way of taking the creativity out of you. So what we found is that creativity is innate in us. What we've got to do is have the absence of fixing. What we then discovered is once you've got the absence of fixing, because we haven't learned to be kind to each other and to be kind to ourselves, we then have to sort of say, don't forget, we're being kind. And because you're always been trying to fix all the time, you don't develop the ability to be a kind judge of yourself. So what you can do is be a harsh judge of yourself, and you go, I'm useless, I can't do this, and you have to so what you notice, the holder of the space says, no, come on, be kind to yourself, so that you don't fear failure. Now have a go at something, create, discover, and invent, being kind to yourself and others, meaning that it's okay to make mistakes. Now let's go. And what the defender of the space has no say of what goes on in the space. So, for example, when we go tall ship sailing, we have that they basically unhook the boat. We have 3 technical experts to keeping people safe, or 2 professional sailors, and we unhook the boat, and then from then on in, the kids have 7 days where they choose the adventure that they want, and they work together without any constraints of what's right or wrong. And they work it out as they're going along, no plan, just working out as they're going along. And they learn to do this, be agile, they learn to adapt, they learn to stop telling each other what to do. So if someone is seasick, not very very well, they don't try and fix them, they just adapt. If somebody's really tired, they just adapt. They don't try and say, this is the way of doing it, you're not playing a role, you're being selfish. Everybody just adapts, because there's no sense of plan A. There's just lots of plan Bs, creating, discovering, inventing together. There is a boundary to it. If the professional crew say the word safety, the kids must do what those professional crew say so. There is no debate on that. But they say the word safety first. As soon as they hear the word safety, that's it. Drop everything, do what you're told to do.
Yeah.
But the crew, because I'm an effective defender of the space, so if I think the crew are doing that too much, I push back on the crew. And then what happens is the crew and the host, space defender, learn that balancing point to find the place where the kids have maximum room to explore who they are and to hunt failure, but still be safe. And it takes a while for those. You need the two tensions of those two to be able to maximise this space. And that's where the kids start to trust me as the defender of space, because if they see, if they feel as though the professional crew are crushing them a bit, they tell me, knowing that I'm going to push it back. I'm there to protect their space from being fixed by other people.
Wow, Jon, this is truly inspiring. I absolutely love it, and it's so outside the box. I haven't ever heard anybody kind of talk in these terms. Apart from myself, to be honest with you, I mean, you're very much speaking my language.
Yeah.
Very much speaking my language.
Now, when I first heard you, I was drawn to you. Yeah, I was drawn to you a lot because we are talking the same thing.
Yeah.
I think the slight difference is I've discovered this by practically doing it.
Yes.
So I've had 20 kids in a room. How do I help them create?
Yeah.
I've done it because of the beauty of being a home educating parent is I've home educated for 6 years, so it's taken me 6 years practically doing this. And of course, in the home editing community, there's lots of parents who also want their children to be innovative. They feel crushed by school, so they want to go somewhere where they can express their innovations. So
yes.
The home editing community is happy to send 20 kids to me every week for 3 or 4 years while I work out how to do it.
Right.
So I've also got lots of supportive parents in the home editing community to help me work, and they all knew we didn't know how to do it, but they all knew what we were trying to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, a massive pat on the back for having the courage just to give it a go, and that's very much the approach I feel we need to make in general. With this whole new paradigm of education, this new approach to education, nobody really knows exactly what they're doing, but we've got to move beyond that fear of the unknown and just run with it. And so I'm so glad we've got you on the show as somebody who's kind of leading the way in that regard. Jon, tell me, how do you actually go about identifying the young people who join you on your programs? How do you actually go about identifying them?
Now, if I'm truthful answer, so we do projects like we do game design, design of product, tall ship sailing, living in a mountain, do business planning, pop-up restaurant. So the idea is to create projects where there is no right and wrong, so avoid that. Now, the last 2 or 3 years, we've just saying anyone can come, anyone's prepared to come can come.
Okay.
And of course, they mainly come from the home editing community, and then just recently we said, why do they mainly come from here? And we would quite like to diversify it, so we have kids from school, college, and university coming on them. And we were starting to get some coming through to us, through friends of friends.
Yes.
And we noticed there was a certain pattern of type of young adult that really enjoys these. Okay. And this is my quick explanation now of how I would select it. I've only recently worked this out. So.
Okay. Looking forward to hearing it.
Right then. So what we're doing is we're saying that we're trying to help young adults become good innovators. Okay? And a good innovator is somebody who can create an alternative way of doing something that other people choose to do. That means a bad innovator is someone that says, I've got the answer and I'm going to fix you and I'm going to make you do it. So a bad innovator forces change on others. A good innovator creates an alternative to people to choose from.
Right.
Yeah. That's what, some of the, so it's right. So when some of these things that you see on Facebook and stuff say the system's broken, change the system, we must blow the system up. That to me is demonstrating an innovator, but innovating in a bad way. A good innovator is someone that creates an alternative.
So you're saying, rather than focusing on what's wrong with what currently exists, shift your focus away from that and keep your focus squarely on what can we create instead, so that there are more options and alternatives available.
Yes, but you can still harbour the frustration over what's broken, and you use that anger broken to motivate you to devise. So often I've been to 2 home editing festivals, and we have a workshop where I said, let's just reinvent education. Right, now we're not going to discuss what's wrong. Let's just clean sheet of paper, unlimited budget, clean whiteboard, go. And that's quite a liberating conversation, because you're facing wrong. But obviously you're there to reinvent education because you don't like the way it is now. But rather than talk about why it's not working all the time, the conversation is what else could we do instead of that. And then obviously practical realities kick in, and you have to scale it down, and you have to work out all the options. But if you're starting from creating an alternative, and to me, the more time we spend talking on alternatives, the less time we spend on what's wrong. Although you use what's wrong to drive you, or to drive your alternative, but it's the alternative that matters, not what's wrong.
I'm 100% with you on that, and it was a conclusion that I came to myself. When I left the school system, I was full of so much anger and frustration about it. The first two years, I was putting out messages through various online forums, holding meetups, wanting to create a new way of education, and all I kept attracting was people who wanted to fix the school system. I was like, why is this happening? And I realized it was because energetically I was still energizing the system by focusing my attention on it.
Yeah.
The little saying that I use now is energy flows where attention goes.
Yeah.
So I'm 100% resonating with what you're saying. And which is why there's been a big shift in my life now. And as soon as I made that shift and stopped focusing on the school system and said to myself, you know, it is what it is, let it be, but my focus is on creating. What do I want to create instead? And that's where the magic started to happen, and I started making connections with people who were on the same wavelength. Jon, something else I wanted to ask you about. I just reading your website, myinnovationspace.com, it mentioned how you are involving employers as well in what you're doing. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, before I do though, just go back.
Sure.
So I now will go into a school, for example. So how do you pick the kids in the school that are likely to be good innovators?
Yeah, go ahead.
I would now go into the school, and I would say, right, to innovate is to change what is now. So it's to change something. Yeah?
Okay.
The way the education system, school system is run, is that the way it is now is to get kids to pass exams, get high marks in exams and assignments. Yep, that's what it is. And it's designed to create children who are good, or can demonstrate that they are good at doing what employers already want. So an employer already does it. So if you're a solicitor, let's say, you do your soliciting process. What you want is a young adult who can just go in and do that. Okay?
Yes.
Why they rely on exams and assignments. Okay? Now I think that the innovators, you're much more likely to be an innovator if what it is now doesn't work for you. Because you're going to be more, it doesn't work. You're much more of a motivator to go and change it.
Yeah.
Yeah? So given that's the case, I would go into a school and I would say, well, young adults who are not motivated by, not very good at, or overly anxious by passing exams and assignments are far more likely to be potential innovators than those that love taking exams and assignments.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. So now I would go to start going to the schools, colleges and things, hunting out those young adults who aren't very good at, not motivated by, or overly anxious by passing exams and assignments. Because it just happens, those are the young adults that the schools and colleges, universities struggle the most with. So it's now starting to work for both of us. so the kids who are in a system that they don't really thrive in can get taken out, say, 2 days a week, come onto my innovation space projects, learn to be a good innovator. So they get to realise that the world isn't all about exams and assignments. The world needs innovators as well. So now you see how the alternative innovation space is now starting to add to the education system.
Understand, yeah.
Yeah. So to answer your next question then, so we then said, how do you fund this? And then the universal question I get from loads and loads of parents is, if he doesn't have lots of exams and if he doesn't have lots of qualifications, he won't be able to get a job. Okay. Now, I've spent most of my life innovating, and I have never, ever, ever got a job that someone else has done it before me. Never.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the parents would say, so I would say to parents, you don't need qualifications to get a good job. What you need to do is to be able to show that you can innovate. And of course, so the parents then say, okay, it worked for you, but it's not going to work for my kid. So I said, I'll prove it to you. So I then said, how can I prove it? So I then go back to I've got a few friends who are quite senior in corporates. And of course, I've got chatting to them. And of course, they then turn around and says, well, what our recruiters can do is quite easily recruit people who can do what we already do. Because we just do the qualifications and put a job out, we need a business analyst to come and do this. Please apply if you've got a degree in X.
Yeah.
And then they get them. But they can't do that if you want an innovator. Because how it can't put an advert out, let's go and get a young innovator. You can't get a degree in innovation because most experts in innovation know it's a very individualistic thing. You can't go on a standardized exam and get a first in innovation. It's an internal thing. So the recruiters, what they can't do is stick an advert out there saying all innovators apply. So Google had ways of getting around it, but then those ways are stopping working now as well. So what I did is went to the recruiters and I said, if I go to the schools, colleges and home education and I pluck or ask these kids who don't like doing exams to come on my projects, it's in a space that's defended, so it's the space to teach them how to become a good innovator where they add value, where they add alternatives, not fixed. They'll come up with a portfolio of projects. When they've got their portfolio of projects, you, the recruiter, can phone me up and I'll send you a bunch of young adults who have a portfolio of innovation projects that the recruiters can then choose from.
Wow.
And most good employers know that if they don't innovate, they're dead. It's that. Some people say that's not true, and I go, okay, because we're living locally. Good examples, Kodak. When you went to Hemel, Kodak owned Hemel. It's gone now because it didn't innovate, and that was only 10, 15 years ago. So all these big employers know they must innovate, and they're not going to be able to innovate if they don't employ at least some young innovators. So the idea is, the recruiters will pay me money and retainers and stuff to help for me effectively to go to the schools, colleges, universities and home education, find the potential young innovators, get them on projects so they learn to be a good innovator, and then they get connected to get a job. And I suspect a job that will be paid more than a graduate, because an innovator is going to save the company's future. A graduate is going to maintain the status quo. And I know which one I'd pay the most.
Yes, I do too.
So now I'm able to say to the parents, yes, you're right. If your child is someone that likes taking exams and assignments, so they're not universally. Let's just we're drawing a line in a massive spectrum here. They're likely to be very successful in doing a job that's already done by already done people, and I don't have a problem with that. What I do have is a problem that everyone's going to do that. Because so all I've done is try to find a way of going into the system, plucking out the ones that are the most natural innovators, helping them become innovators, not an exam in sight, and then getting them a job doing what they would love doing in an employer that wants to innovate. So the types of jobs they'll get is an employer will say, right, go into this space, we won't tell you what to do, we just want you to go into the space, travel around the organisation, travel around the place, meet people, discuss people, do stuff, and when you come up with an idea, come and tell us.
Okay.
That sounds to me like a pretty cool job.
Yeah, sounds amazing.
Yeah. So basically, when hopefully the parents will then say, okay, we want our kids to be a young adult innovator, we want them to learn to become a young adult innovator, and these are the types of jobs they're going to get. So it's adding in an alternative to, I must get a university degree, otherwise I won't get a job.
Yes.
So now I've got two: go to university, otherwise I won't get a job, or build up a portfolio of innovation projects so that I can get a job as a young innovator. So those are my two things.
What do your portfolios look like? Are you talking about a written portfolio? Do they provide written work to back up what they've done, or what?
No, avoid that like the plague. It is a conversational piece. So
Right.
sometimes it's photos, sometimes they might produce something. We just did a project where they designed a game. And
Yes.
they got to the point where they created a name, they created the product, so you can actually play the game. So in that case, because they're prototyping the game, we get it to the point where they can bring the game, put it on the desk, and say, let's play.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's the output of the product, not the process.
Yes. So the outcome itself is the evaluation, if you like.
That's right, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and if they're designing a new product, they'll come along with a product. They'll either mocked it up, or mocked it up as in designed it, or we'll have a CAD system where you can wander around it, or 3D printed or something. It might not be a working thing, but it will be an object that has an idea behind it. And then when they're doing the toolship setting or living in the mountains, they've got photos, but you know, they're going to have huge range. They have a massive range of experiences to talk about. You know, so if I was a recruiter interviewing and I asked for an interview, I'd say, oh, I see you've been toolship sailing. Where did you go? And then from that conversation, you know, the recruiter will know they're dealing with an innovator, because the innovator will very much say, we chose to do this. We adapted here. We wanted to do that, but we changed our mind because it was a bit wet and windy, so we changed here. So they're looking all the time for rather than saying this is where we're going to go and we followed it, they're looking for someone who adapts, changes, creates plan Bs. And that will come across in the conversations based on, so if someone presented me a game, so how did you create that game? Well, the process of creating that game isn't a straight line. It's all muddled, waffling all over the place and failing. So there's a story behind that product. And it's quite easy, I think, for a recruiter to interview someone to get that journey out, because an innovator bursts out of them. They want to talk about their journey. And what you're looking for is this flexibility. You're looking for someone who hates plan A's, loves plan B's.
Wonderful, wonderful. Love it.
Yeah.
One other question I wanted to ask before I pass back to you, Chris, is I'm assuming when these kids come to you, you just treat them as unique individuals that, I'm just hazarding a guess here, but do quite a few of them come with labels or they've been given in the system, such as ADD or dyslexia, for example?
Yes. And when they turn up with that label like that, we give them a high five.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what?
To reframe it.
Yeah. Well, not only that, we don't need to reframe it. If you're going to be an innovator, you need to be different from the rest.
Ah, yes. Okay. Yeah.
So
Differences are to be celebrated.
It is. Yes. The differences are to be celebrated. You know, so I'm dyslexic. And often say the stories. I'm dyslexic. I have a writing age of about 12. I've got a degree, which is another story. But I've got a writing age of 12. But I've got a very, very high IQ. So people used to sit there and say to me, John, we need to fix you. We need to get your writing age to a higher level. And
Right.
I just resisted it.
Yeah.
So now what I can do is I can use my high IQ to take a very, very complicated idea and process it down to the essence and write it using 10-year-old English. So,
Wow.
So it isn't. So people say I'm limited because I can only write English up to the age of 10. Well, no, actually, you'll find I can find a context. Well, that's deeply useful. You know, really, really clever people tend to write English in a really, really complicated way.
Yes, they do.
What I do is I'm able to process really, really complicated things and process it down to something that a 10-year-old can understand. So that gives everybody access to expertise that they can't normally get because they haven't got the level of qualifications to get there. And that's how I learned to use my gift of dyslexic. It isn't. It's only a problem. I only need fixing. I only need fixing if I'm in the school. I come out of school. I don't need fixing.
Yeah.
Learn how to use what I've got. And that's often. We often, for example, we had a young lady on toolships who got dyspraxia, in her eyes, dyspraxia. You know, which means, you know, she tried calling ropes is really hard. And she got shown how to call the ropes, and she kept getting it wrong. She was getting frustrated. So they asked me to come and help her. So I was the host, so I've come in. So I just look at her, she looks at me, and I said, right, well, let's find another way. We don't have to do it that way, let's find another way. So we just looked at her, and she talked to me, and I looked at her, and said, oh, and I know. So we got the rope, and we put it on the deck, and we coiled it on the deck, so it's in its coil, and we picked it up and hung it over the hook. Job done. You know, the crew came along saying, well, that's fine, but because she couldn't coil it with her hands, they thought she couldn't do it. and all we did was find a plan B. Yes, you can call.
Yeah.
Who says you have to have it in your hands while you're calling the rope? Nobody. Who says this is universal, God-given way? You must call rope this exact way. Nobody.
Yes.
So just find another way. So they do come with labels, but we see that as a label as an opportunity to find another way. Because you're not going to be an innovator if you. I don't think you're going to be an innovator if you don't have a need to find another way. So the label means you have an opportunity to find another way. So to me, they're gifts. They're not a sign that someone needs fixing.
No, I'm with you on that. I do quite a lot of confidence coaching with kids with these kind of labels, and that's my first message to them. It's a gift.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gift.
Yeah.
Celebrate it.
Yeah. You see, and if they came to us, that gift becomes you can get a better job than someone who goes to university.
Right.
So it becomes
amazing.
It becomes more real.
Yeah.
Yeah. So someone's going to believe you. That person over there who doesn't have a problem, at best will leave university and have a 35 grand a year job. You learn to be an innovator and you'll be earning 45 grand a year.
Sure.
And that I think it needs. You're quite right. Some of them do come along with their self-esteem so battered that they're not quite ready. They can't go into our innovation space because they're too hurt.
Yes.
Some of them often need a one-on-one coach to help them recover their self-esteem so that they can go into a space with others. It's not the space to face them. It's the fact they're so traumatized they can't be in a space with other people.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah, so those ones that are that traumatized can't go into our innovation, so it's too hard for them. So if that happens, we tend to say, right, go and meet this person. Maybe go and see yourself and go and have some one-on-one where they recover. I had to do that for my eldest. It took us a year for me to just go silent with him for a year to help him recover before his passion returned for connecting. So but you still so you can't pour any child with any label into an innovation space. But what often happens is they come in and they can't cope and they leave, and that's okay. But that immediately means that tells us, okay, go get one-on-one. We don't do that.
Awesome. You come across as a man who is completely comfortable in his own skin, and that to me is what I would suggest is your greatest gift to these kids, because you're like a natural role model. You're in a position to say to these kids, well, I was told I have dyslexia, but look, I've turned it into a gift. And for my money, this is what we need. More and more individuals like you have reached that state of clarity regarding their own inner greatness, really. I think we're all incredibly unique and full of immense creative potential. It's just so many of us have been conditioned by society to see otherwise. But you come across as somebody who has opened his eyes to his own magnificence, and that's what we need. So I applaud you for the work that you've done to recognize your own greatness, because that is clearly having a major, making a huge difference to the children who are coming into your sphere of influence. So well done, and thank you for sharing your experiences with us. Truly inspiring. I love it. I have to come and meet you and pick your brains some more, that's for sure, definitely.
Come to an innovation space, yeah. Come and be a host.
I'd love to come along and, get a real inside of you.
Yeah. But just one thing to add, what I've just is that it isn't what I don't think is what society is doing to us. Right?
Yeah.
It is somewhere along the lines we are learning behaviours to fix other people. Unlearn those behaviours, and then you get to fix yourself. It isn't a massive problem that we can't fix without changing society. I don't believe that. There are just simple behaviours that we've learned, admittedly from people around us, but they're behaviours that we can change. And so one of the things I do is I've written a little book called Mental Fitness. What it is, it's just got 6 habits. What you do is you take that, and those 6 habits stop you from trying to fix other people. And all you have to do is stop fixing other people, and then somewhere along the line, you work out who you are. So by fixing other people's our diversion, just stop doing it. And because we all have an innate passion to come out, it just comes out. You can't help it. I think it's like you, it just bursts out, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the only reason it's not suppressed by society, I think it's suppressed by behaviours we have to fix others, and we can change them one person at a time.
Love your perspective.
Yeah.
Chris, at this point, I'm going to hand over to you.
Fabulous stuff. Yeah, I've been listening in the background. There's a couple of things that I just want to comment on, which is someone told me once that an old boss of mine, he said, if you can make something that's complex incredibly simple, you've got a real solution. So what you're doing there, Jon, in terms of telling it like a 10-year-old, you are opening up the box to everybody in society, which if you make it hard, we're basically saying we can't understand this unless you've got an education, and that's an amazing thing you've done there, and that's brilliant, because in essence that's what we're doing really at Early for Growth, is trying to make stuff that's complicated really, really simple, and I applaud that, and I think it's an amazing thing. There was something else I was going to say, but I can't remember what it was now, but I've just been listening, it's been fascinating, and excellent stuff you're doing there, and we just need to be doing this all over the place. I'll tell you what it was that if you ever want to know how people that are different can change their situation and celebrate their challenges, you just have to look at the Olympics that follows the normal Olympics. And there's people there that shouldn't be doing things that they're doing, but they're doing those things because they're doing them because they've got the inspiration to say, my challenge isn't going to hold me back.
Well, to add to that, as a classic example, I was watching a Usain Bolt interview. One of the things he said, he asked for a TV in his room, okay? And they didn't have a TV in his room, right? So what you would expect would be, I'm Usain Bolt, get me my TV in the room. What did Usain Bolt do? He went to the shop and bought one. So if you get behind all these successful sports people, what you find is, that didn't work, I tried something else. That didn't work, I tried something else. It's the mental agility combined with their physical abilities that gets them there. They don't have some fixed A plan. Usain Bolt didn't have a plan from the age 17 to the age of where he is now. That guy could have picked a phone up and someone would have delivered him 10 TVs. What did he do? Get down, walk to the shop and bought one. Because he had power over that and he could do that. And it's the more, and then he watched the TV for the swimmers, and Petey just breaks the world record and stuff. And what happens is the interviewers say, he got up at 10 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the morning and he trained for 7 years and that's why he became there. But that's not the case. What happens is he has the talent, he wakes up, something doesn't work, he tries something else. Something doesn't work, he tries something else. They find a way by just finding by adapting, and they don't buy into this straight line plan called 8 O levels, 3 A levels, a degree, fantastic job, get married, have kids, have a big house. They don't have that concept of plan A. What they have is make the best of what I've got. It just so happens that what they've got helps them break world records. But that same mentality can apply to all of us. Make the best of what you got.
Absolutely. And there's something else you were saying there that it's just a question really. I'll try it probably as a question on this video when we post it. But what the inevitability of creating innovators is that they'll say to themselves, why am I innovating for somebody else? Why am I just innovating and just enjoying it and being happy innovating? I don't actually need to innovate for somebody else for money. I just actually want to innovate and be happy innovating. And do you not think that might end up being the transition that we go down?
My experience, all good innovators innovate for the sake of it. They don't do it to make money.
No.
No, it's not a money thing, it's a who am I thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're an innovator doing it for money, you're probably not an innovator.
Absolutely, because it's got an ulterior motive. It's not creation. It's got another thing, and it's not pure, is it? In my mind, it's got to be innovating for innovation.
Yeah, I think if you go to all the successful innovators that we all know, that because you can go several books where someone's gone around and interviewing all the best innovators in the world, and I've read a couple of good books on it, and they all conclude at the end, none of them hunted money. You chase
once they've got enough to survive and live and enjoy themselves, and they haven't got a want for the whatever it is, Maslow's law and all that sort of stuff. Once they get to that, it's not about the money. It's about actually doing what I'm absolutely passionate about.
Yeah. So Steve Jobs, for example, although child labour and exploitation and making lots of money, I'm pretty, is which I find very uncomfortable. But at the same time, though, it was his passion to create the iPhone. It was who he was. It was like his identity was in the iPhone.
Yeah.
He didn't do that for money. He could have maybe used his innovative abilities to apply it to a business model, which may have done more good in the world than it did do. But you can't. He didn't say, "I want to be a multi-billionaire. I'll invent the iPhone." He created something that made him money by coincidence. I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
It's just a shame he didn't think, well, how can I innovate how business works? Imagine what he'd done if he'd done that.
Maybe that's for other minds. So, on that note, just absolutely amazing. Thank you, David, for steering the conversation. Thank you, Jon, for coming on and sharing all the great stuff you're doing. We'll make sure this gets to as many ears as we possibly can, and that won't stop tomorrow or the day after, because it's here for the duration, and we'll be able to share it to anybody that starts talking in the right way.
Brilliant. Thank you for great questions, David.
You're welcome. Jon, for anyone who wants to contact you, what would be the best way to do that?
Probably the best would be to go to myinnovationspace.com and just click contact there. Or my email address is Jon, Jon, because it's short for Jonathan, so it's jon.thorne, which is THORNE, at myinnovationspace.com.
We'll get those contact details put on the video notes as well, so that people can actually get in touch with you. Might want to put yours on there as well, David. And
sure.
Brilliant stuff. Another fantastic show. Well done. And I think we've got some other guests lined up. If you know anybody out there that's involved in education or wants to see changes in education, or not necessarily changing the existing system as you were talking about, but creating what comes next, which is the most important thing. Let's forget what we've got and let's create what we need. So, fabulous. All right, time to say goodbye. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching, everyone. And,
thank you, Chris.
Cheers, and we'll see you next time in 2 weeks' time. Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.